So episodes 6 and 7 just dropped and there is a lot to unpack as we see more and more familiar faces return. So let's get straight into it. We begin on the planet Raxus, which was the capital of the separatists during the Clone Wars and a location the Bad Batch have visited back in season 1. We see another clone X-Trooper looking down his scope, observing the movements and positions of the clones. Now, the Clone X-Trooper, which first appeared in Season 2, is a secret division of clones that have been indoctrinated to be absolutely loyal to the Empire to the point of fanaticism. And the clone that the Clone X-Trooper is observing down his scope is none other than Howzer, who first appeared back in Season 1 on Ryloth, being one of the first clones to defect against the Empire and subsequently rescued back in Season 2 of the planet Balmorra. We see Senator Singh making a return alongside GS-8, both of which also appeared back in Season 1 when the Bad Batch were tasked with extracting them. Escorting them is Captain Rex, and we hear Howzer check in with Greer, who is a new clone that we have never met before. We see one of Senator Chuchi's guards and Senator Chuchi herself, who also appeared in the previous season uncovering the destruction of Kamino. We hear the two converse about forming a united resistance against the Empire and Emperor Palpatine. At this point in the timeline, openly resisting against Palpatine would have arguably been easier as the Death Star was not yet constructed, which meant that Palpatine still had to contend with the politics of the Senate. What we might also be seeing here is the beginnings of the Rebel Alliance as well. The Shadow makes his way into the meeting room, and in the process he kills Greer, making this the first clone death of the season, which really hurts my soul. And given how this and the next episode goes, it's going to be really painful. The color on Greer's armor also lets us know that he was likely once part of the 41st Elite Corps serving under Jedi Master Luminara Unduli, potentially also serving in the 41st Battalion, which we saw back in Season 1. Howzer checks in again, this time calling Samson, another new clone, who we don't get to see just yet. We also see later wearing green armor of the 41st Corps, Clone Trooper Fireball, who was also introduced in the previous season. When Greer doesn't check back, this tips them off that something is wrong, the assassin's cover is blown after Rex spots him, and there's a great moment when Rex and Fireball run through the vapor where we can see the vapor react as they pass through, which really just shows how much detail they invested in this show. The team manages to apprehend him, and Howzer remarks that they keep running into these guys, indicating that the Empire has been using these clones to hunt them for a while. The clones make their way back to the base, which happens to be on the planet Teth, which features a lot of the Balmorra monasteries, which are the spider monks we see at Jabba's palace. And Teth is a planet that was first visited in the Clone Wars as a setting for Ahsoka and Anakin's mission to rescue Jabba's kid, Rada. Patrolling the perimeter, we see a red clone trooper, which likely means that he was once part of the Coruscant Guard. We also get to see a purple clone trooper, which indicates that they were once part of the 187th Legion belonging to Mace Windu. However, it should be noted that there are some discrepancies here, as the 187th Legion did appear in the Clone Wars with more of a brown-reddish color, and at this point the lore doesn't really explain why there is this difference. We then also get to see another clone wearing the orange color scheme, making him part of the 212th Battalion with Commander Cody, which does prop up an interesting question of where is Cody at this point, as he was featured back in Season 2 having defected from the Empire. We also get to see Namek as Rex walks into the cell, and we see Howzer interrogating the CX trooper. Rex asks if they have extracted the electro capsule, which was embedded in his teeth, and we can even see the tool used to extract it in an earlier shot. Back on Tantus, Scorch activates another Shadow, who is then tasked to get rid of the other Shadow. The clones figure out that Senator Singh was the target, but also learn that Omega was a secondary target from the Data Puck, which is quite similar to the bounty hunting pucks that we see in The Mandalorian.
Is that a bounty puck?
Howzer tells Rex that they should bring the Bad Batch here and question Crosshair, and Howzer's distaste for Crosshair stems from their previous experience with each other on Ryloth. Back with the Bad Batch, we see Omega copying Crosshair's toothpick habits, signaling her growing attachment to him, something which Crosshair also notices. Echo tells Hunter that he needs to pick up Gregor after he drops them off, and Gregor was the commando who first appeared in the Clone Wars and subsequently rescued by the Bad Batch in Season 1. Echo gives Omega a crossbow, and the Shadow lands on Teth. Howzer questions why Crosshair wasn't on the Imperial's target list when Omega was, and Hunter tells him to back down.
Gonna have to back down, Captain.
Demonstrating that Hunter has overcome his initial distrust for his teammate since the last episode. Omega tells them that she was captured to force Nala Se to work and that they were working on a project involving M-count, short for midi-chlorian count. Rex appears to recognize this but isn't so sure. And Rex will likely find out what M-count means from Ahsoka, who is also at this point running around. The Shadow sets a few explosives and Fireball brings in their meals. Crosshair also talks about the secret Shadow division which also tried to convert him but didn't work due to his defective genetics. The Shadow manages to identify Omega and contact Scorch, who then tells him that a dedicated strike team will be on their way. The Shadow takes out their detection systems and in the process kills the 212 clone trooper, which is really sad. Explosions are triggered outside, which also ends up killing the other two clones, and this really just hurts me as a Clone Wars fan. But the show really just does this to remind us how precious these clone lives are. The fact that we might feel hurt by the idea of nameless clones dying reminds us of their humanity and how precious few there are left in this galaxy. Arguably making this one of the darkest episodes of the season. The Shadow kills the captive CX trooper and Namek tries to restore comms but is knocked back by an explosion. Fireball sees this and decides to run in with a flamethrower to buy the rest of the team time, only to be shot dead. There is another explosion as the CX trooper is covered in rubble. We are then shown the strike team arriving led by Commander Wolffe, who previously served under Plo Koon during the Clone Wars, which I honestly say is about damn time. On to the next episode, we see the Shadow survive the ordeal, but unfortunately Fireball does not. Rex tells them that they need to reach their leech vessel, and leech vessels are ships used by pirates for boarding action, and we previously saw this in action when they rescued Howzer back in Season 2. Wolffe arrives and is surprised to see clones, which begins to make him question their mission. Wolffe tells Clone Commando Hilo to set blasters to stun. We can also see that Wolffe's team is a good mix of clones and stormtroopers. Crosshair and the CX Trooper have a brief one-on-one, which if it weren't for the fact that Crosshair had hand problems would probably have been relatively short. The team make it to their leech vessel, but it then gets shot down by CX Trooper. Crosshair checks in on Omega and he starts to become overly concerned about her, which she points out makes him kinda like Hunter. And this is really just a way for the show to let us know that the relationship has evolved since they escaped on Tantis. And it really gives off big brother / dad vibes, which is uncharacteristically funny for the sniper. Howzer questions why Crosshair defected, and Crosshair gives him a brief rundown which he finally accepts, setting aside their differences. The team end up getting cornered by Wolffe's team, but in the process, virtually all the stormtroopers are killed or incapacitated along with some clones. We get the classic Wilhelm scream as Crosshair takes down the ship, and the sniper has to face off against the CX trooper once again. Really, this is just a way for Crosshair to demonstrate his loyalty and commitment to his clone brothers.
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
Crosshair and the CX Trooper face off, but he nearly ends up drowning if it weren't for the rest saving him. The Shadow falls down a waterfall where he is presumed to be dead. Commander Wolffe finally catches up with them, and Rex and him both recognize each other. Rex tries to convince Wolffe, but Wolffe doesn't quite believe that the Empire is experimenting on clones. But we do know for a fact that somewhere down the line Wolffe will be joining them, as he does appear alongside Rex in Rebels. Another interesting thing to note is that while Wolffe ends up letting them go, no one in his squad really tries to stop him, as behind him they are all clones. Equally as interesting is that the Clone Commando doesn't really stop him either. We had previously seen that Hemlock prefers to be surrounded by Clone Commandos, and we were also given no indication that Clone Commandos had decided to defect, besides Greer. But if this one clone was able to defy orders, it might signal the possibility that all the Clone Commandos on Tantis might be able to flip as well, or are still under some sort of inhibitor effect to ensure their loyalty. Either way, this does promise a huge boost to the clone cause when they finally decide to attack Tantis. It turns out that the CX Trooper is still alive, and Rex tells Hunter that he needs to figure out why Omega is so important to the Empire. Which is kinda funny because one phone call to Ahsoka would kinda fix all these problems. Anyways, that's all for episode 6 and 7 of Bad Batch Season 3, and this is probably the most clone-heavy episode by far, which I really love. So that's all for this breakdown. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. I am the Lost Acolyte,
and I have spoken.